Well, good morning, everybody. Rob here in Bakersfield, California, on the way to work, and welcome to this week's Throwback Thursday. This week's story is going to be about the grocery bags full of pot. I was working the third watch graveyard shift out of Eastern Division, and I was filling in on another beat. I wasn't working my normal beat. I was working out by La Mesa Boulevard, or Lake Murray Boulevard, out on the east side of the city limits. And it was about 1:30 in the morning. I'm driving along and I see this car coming towards me, and he doesn't have his headlights on. So I flick my bright lights at him to let him know he doesn't have his lights on. No response. Well, I slow down and I flick them at him again. Still no response. So we pass each other as we go underneath the street light. He looks over at me and I'm looking at him, and he all of a sudden realizes that I'm a cop, and he gets that look on his face like, oh shit. Well, I'm looking at him in my rearview mirror because now we've passed each other, and he still hasn't turned his lights on, so he didn't get it. So I spin a U-turn, take off after him to pull him over and, you know, make sure his lights are operating, tell him to turn them on. I get up behind him. He still hasn't turned his lights on. So I flick on my overhead emergency red and blue lights and light him up like a Christmas tree. He immediately slams on the brakes and pulls to the curb, stops and shuts off the car. I get up and I walk up to the car, and as I'm walking up, I shine my flashlight in the back seat, and I see two great big brown paper bag shopping bags full of individually wrapped baggies of a green leafy materials. Looks like marijuana to me. And as I come up to the side of his window and he rolls down the window, I'm immediately hit with the pungent odor of pot. So I ask him for his driver's license and his registration, and he gets out and he's handing it to me, and he goes, well, what'd you pull me over for, sir? I said, well, because you were driving without your headlights on. He goes, well, I'm not driving, I'm parked. And I said, yeah, but you were driving. We just passed each other under that street light. You looked right at me. Well, he's got this dumb look on his face. And now, you know, I got his driver's license and his registration. So I shine my flashlight on those two shopping bags sitting in the back seat right behind him. And I take a big whiff. And, you know, sure enough, it smells like pot. It looks like pot. He turns around and looks at the shopping bags, turns back around and looks up at me, and he's got this look on his face that you just can't describe. And I look at him, I go, what you got all that pot for? And he goes, oh, that's not mine. I was just delivering it to a friend's house. And I go, well, you know, that's against the law, don't you? And he goes, yeah, I guess. I said, well, I'm going to have to arrest you. I'm going to have to get out of the car. So he steps out of the car. So I'm turning around, put his hand behind his back, and he did. I walk him back to my car, put him in the back seat, go back up to his car, reach in the back seat and grab the two shopping bags full of pot, go stick them back in my trunk. I lock his car up for him, give him back his keys so it doesn't get ripped off. Take him downtown, book him into jail, and book in my evidence. And you'd think that'd be the end of the story. Slam dunk case, right? Well, nope. A few months later, I get a notice a summons to appear in court to testify. Apparently Daddy had got him a lawyer and he was going to fight it. So I get in there, you know, I'm called up to the witness stand, prosecutor goes through his thing, you know, basically just goes through the report, you know. Why'd I stop him? Well, because he was driving without any lights. You know, how did I know it was pot sitting back there? Well, because I had extensive training in narcotics, and I'm certified as a narcotics specialist for testifying in court. And, you know, why didn't you get a search warrant? And And I said, well, because I didn't need one. It was laying right there in plain sight. So, case closed, right? Okay, well now it's the defense attorney's time to question me. So he comes up and he goes, okay, Mr. Officer Rob, if you stopped him for driving without his lights on, why didn't you issue him a citation for that? I said, well, I noted that in my report, but I didn't feel it was necessary to tag on a traffic infraction since I was arresting him for a felony. Didn't want to make it worse for him. Okay, then his next question was, well, how did you know that was pot? Just standing outside the car looking at it. And I said, well, several things. First off, I've had extra extensive advanced officer training in narcotics to be certified as a narcotics specialist to testify in court. And I've made hundreds of arrests. And I've testified dozens of times in court. And I've never been wrong. And then the next thing was, well, okay, why didn't you get a search warrant or have consent to search? It was an illegal search and seizure. And I said, no, it's not an illegal search and seizure because it's in plain sight and within arm's reach. I have every right to reach in there and grab it. And I don't have to get a search warrant for that. I can if I want to, but I don't have to. Then his next thing was, okay, well, you didn't admonish him of his constitutional rights, his Miranda rights, before questioning him. And I said, well, that's because I didn't question him about anything regarding the crime after I arrested him. You only have to admonish them of their constitutional rights if you're questioning them in regards to the crime that they're suspected of or committing. And I said, yeah, I did ask him, what are you doing with all that pot? But by then, I had already decided I was going to arrest him. I was just asking him a question that had no bearing on whether or not he was going to get arrested or not. So, that pretty much shot down all the questions the defense attorney had. So I get down off the stand, and the defense attorney calls for a sidebar with the judge and the prosecutor, and they have a little bit of discussion there for about 5 minutes or so or whatever. They go back to the thing, their counters or desk or whatever. And the defense attorney makes a motion to change his plea to guilty, which they do. Throws his client on the mercy of the court, and the court goes ahead and sentences him, gave him a shorter sentence for pleading guilty. Case closed. But the defense attorney was trying to show that I had done something wrong, which I had not. I mean, just because I did not issue him a citation for driving without his lights on, it was mentioned in the report. I didn't have to issue him a citation for that. I still had probable cause to make a stop. I didn't have to get a search warrant because the pot was sitting there in plain sight. And I had like I said, I had specialized training, so I knew what it was, what it smelled like, what it looked like. And I didn't need to admonish him of his constitutional rights because I didn't question him in regards to the crime to make the arrest. In my mind, I was already going to arrest him. I just wanted to give him an opportunity to give me an excuse why he had so much pot in the back seat. It really had no bearing on the case. Case closed. Well, if you like my story, hit the like button, give me some comments, subscribe, come back next week for another one. And yes, this was long before California passed the medical marijuana law. It was still illegal, and it was a felony to have that many bags of individually rolled pot in shopping bags. I'm talking 2 big brown grocery bags filled to the brim with individually wrapped bags of marijuana. That's a bunch of dope. A lot more than for personal use. Even today, that still wouldn't classify as personal use for medical marijuana. That's way too much. You're only allowed to have a certain amount. I don't remember what it is. I don't know what the law is. I don't keep up on that crap anymore. I don't really care. Well, see y'all later. Bye-bye.